Hey guys, so in the previous video, we discussed narcissism alongside psychopathy and sociopathy, and today, we'll be looking at things from a similar but somewhat different perspective: narcissism versus borderline personality disorder. I understand that learning more about narcissism and all the terminologies and a sea of information can be overwhelming, so I want you to know that you are not alone. If all the new knowledge you've picked up recently is making you feel confused, scared, or even frustrated, it's a two-way thing, because the knowledge can feel empowering and help you understand some of your toxic relationships better. For some people, the facts can feel discouraging because they know their problems now, but are not sure how to approach them. Whether you belong to the first or second category here, the most important thing is that you're taking the first real step, which is gaining insight into the situation of things. Welcome to our channel, where we talk about the journey to self-development. If you're new here, we trust you're going to love this video. And if you're a subscriber, thank you for coming back. Without further ado, let's dive in. So today, we'll try to cover a whole lot of things on the topic, from explaining each of these disorders to talking about if and where they meet, before finally discussing a few possible treatments or solutions. As some sort of bonus, we'll also touch on what relationships between narcissists and those with borderline personality disorder might look like. The reason why we're able to juxtapose narcissism and BPD in the first place is because these personality disorders belong to the same cluster. They share several characteristics and symptoms that make it tough to spot the difference between both. So I thought of a great angle to approach my explanation, and I think this should really be helpful. Rather than the classic methods of simply telling you what traits make each disorder stand out, we'll consider them from a more pictorial standpoint. So, say there's two friends, Ada and George. While Ada deals with borderline personality disorder, George has narcissistic personality disorder. Let's talk about Ada's symptoms and what the experiences may feel like. First of all, she's scared of being unlovable, and this fear makes her seek attention even in places where intimacy is not present. In the lens through which she sees herself, life is only meaningful when close personal connections are present. So there's this deep fear of abandonment. Imagine a fear so deep that it affects her sense of self and is present in her thoughts and reality. Like Ada, people with borderline personality disorder exhibit dependent and clingy behavior and have a shaky sense of identity and self-perception. They might experience episodes of emotional instability or feelings of emptiness or a lack of motivation. All of these experiences can trigger self-harming behaviors or suicidal ideations in people with BPD. Now moving on to George the narcissist. In our illustration, we're staring at a person who convinced he stands out, up to the point of superiority. The narcissist may seem composed and overly confident at all times, but most times, this is only because they've managed to believe those heightened qualities that they crown themselves with. When you feel that kind of exaggerated worth, you simply cannot escape having the strong urge to get others to accept this faux perception of you. This belief of being special that narcissists hold on to is built on the foundation that they've designed to help them forget their ingrained fear of worthlessness. So a narcissist will feel insulted by anything that appears to be challenging their self-esteem. And this might seem commendable until you realize that the so-called self-preservation is only meant to maintain that picture of superiority that has been created, rather than address the actual fear lying beneath the surface. A narcissistic George is unlikely to have empathy for others and may harbor feelings of resentment, envy, or revenge. You might also find him bragging about non-existent achievements or trying too hard to dominate conversations and relationships. Narcissists get sensitive in the face of even potential criticism, simply because they feel attacked by anything that appears to be coming after the illusion of superiority they've created. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, please hit that subscribe button for more content about self-development and improving your life. It really helps our new channel, and your kindness will go a long way. Now, the next logical question would obviously be, so where do they meet? How are narcissists and people with BPD similar? The one thing people in both categories struggle with is insecurity. Behind the outward confidence or clinginess, these people have fears strong enough to distort the way they see themselves and others. It's why narcissists and people with borderline personality disorder happen to find themselves in unstable relationships. Abandonment is another word that anyone dealing with any of both personality disorders might be familiar with. The clinginess of someone with borderline personality disorder might be so intense that they unintentionally scare people off. Most people out there are wary of individuals who come into their lives and start to act all familiar and dependent. But that's exactly what you can expect from a person who has borderline personality disorder. Still on the subject of abandonment, narcissists get their own share of the cake, but in a somewhat opposite manner. The narcissist is likely to be the abandoner in this case because they're always on their feet and would prefer to act quickly if they sense abandonment coming. It doesn't matter whether or not their feelings were grounded in truth. Give a narcissist the chance to reinforce their superiority, and they'd grab the opportunity. Isolation is another familiar experience in the world of narcissism and borderline personality disorder. These individuals may spend a huge part of their lives in isolation because they find it challenging to do normal things like keeping a job or building interpersonal relationships. They also struggle with mood regulation and are more predisposed to other challenges like depression and substance abuse. So now, let's talk a little bit about their differences. Narcissists can be exploitative to get what they want and sometimes see themselves above everyone else and even laid down rules. Their lack of emotion is at the core of their choices, unlike people with BPD, who we might say are driven by their emotions. A person with BPD may be just as exploitative, but the difference lies in the motive. Their action is mostly fueled by their desire to connect. Something else to remember is that while the narcissist's biggest fear is to be average, a person with borderline personality disorder is more afraid of being hurt. This means one party steers clear of relationships where they cannot be in control, and the other may avoid making connections if they suspect they wouldn't be protected. You might know someone who has almost every single trait in both lists, so indeed, it is possible for a person to have both narcissism and BPD. Fortunately, BPD and narcissism can respond to prolonged professional care. Of course, it all starts with getting a diagnosis, which can be tough since several personality disorders overlap. Psychotherapy is also a helpful recovery path for people with BPD and NPD, but professionals generally determine the best approaches to follow, depending on what motivates the disordered behavior. Finally, let's talk a little bit about what happens when a narcissist and a person with BPD enter into a relationship or attract one another. You may have noticed that people in these different categories often end up together, and that's mostly because the person with BPD shows up vulnerable. Unfortunately, this is the exact kind of energy that draws the narcissist who simply wants to be in control and adored. They go ahead and do everything in their power to make the other person feel loved, all with the aim of asserting their superiority. At the end, which most times comes too quickly, the true nature of both sides starts to manifest. The narcissist slowly starts to withdraw their attention since they've got what they wanted and no longer have an appeal for it. And because the person with BPD needs that excessive security to maintain connection, the relationship slowly loses its taste before finally crashing. The great thing about understanding how narcissism and borderline personality disorder differ is how helpful your knowledge will be when you need to understand what's going on with a loved one or even your particular situation. You'll also know what to do and can take things up from there. Thank you so much for watching till the end of this video. So what did you think? Sound off in the comments and give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful. Don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. And if you find this information useful, check out this other video from our channel too. Until next time, we wish you a happy and healthy day.